Carriad. Who is she? She is the largest and oldest gaff rig ketch in the world today. Carriad is a Welsh word meaning beloved or sweetheart. She was built in 1896 by Somers and Payne of Southampton for Lord Dunraven of England. Carriad's history is truly rich. She won the 1898 Lisbon to Bombay Vasco da Gama Cup, returning the trophy to the Royal Yacht Squadron. What is the Carriad project? As of 2024, it is the latest 4-year restoration of a classic 128-year-old gaff-rigged sailing yacht. The Carriad project is much more than a restoration of a classic yacht. It represented an opportunity for an owner to preserve maritime history, driven by passion with a personal wealth to fund such a project. An opportunity for master tradesmen, artists in their field, to display and pass on their knowledge to future classic yacht restoration shipwrights. An opportunity to put on the map and encourage the Kingdom of Thailand's boat building industry. An opportunity for a designer, Mr. Paul Spooner, to restore and recreate history. An opportunity for a project manager, Mr. Des Kearns and Ked, along with their teams, to showcase a lifetime of experience and bring together a rare specialist crew to be able to even execute such a complex restoration. Each and every person who was asked to join the Carriad project knew that this was an opportunity of a lifetime and was something much bigger than a yacht refit. It was commented, everyone involved would have worked for the privilege had there not been a need of money to live. The result is what can only be described as breathtaking. If you love yachts and true craftsmanship, then you will love the Carriad 1896 project.
Tim asked me to get involved a few years back, basically to get her back into sailing condition. As with so many projects, the project just grew and grew, and there was quite a lot more structural work to be done and engineering, and I mean the whole team has done a huge amount to get her to this point. I've helped out with the engineering and some of the structures, worked with the rig, and that to a point where today we took her sailing. It was a fantastic day. She sailed as well as I think as we all hoped, not even a little bit better. And
Tim Hartnell, the CEO of Express Feeders Shipping Line, is the owner of Carriad. He trusted us to do the job. This was our brief. I want you to restore Carriad to a former glory, utilising traditional methods. However, in our wildest dreams, we never thought we would carry out the restoration twice. From the beginning, we believed our true challenge was to produce a quality of workmanship in Thailand that would be judged favourably by our peers in Europe. We've achieved that. I regard restoring Carriad as an opportunity in life to leave behind something tangible. From Tim's point of view, why did he do it? Because it takes a lot of heart, guts, trust and money. Tim always said, I've found it difficult to resist the call of history, especially when I'm presented with the chance to preserve it. Because without his money and his backing, we wouldn't have what we have out there today. She was built in 1896, Southampton, all the traditional methods, for Lord Dunraven, who wanted a fast ocean racing yacht. In the last 100 years, she's had a checkered career, 13 owners, refit after refit. She's completed 3 circumnavigations, survived 2 world wars and the Great Depression, and twice we brought her back to life. And here we are today doing sea trials.
Carriad project has been a big part of your life for how many years?
Coming up to 5 years to restore this boat for me and our crew.
The level of detail looking around is just incredible. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. Remembering we're on a 128-year-old vessel. How did you get her to look so beautiful and stunning?
The integrity of the vessel comes down to myself and my Thai guys.
Now your life work is restoring traditional timber vessels like Carriad?
That's correct.
We were talking off camera before, this table, for instance, has so much history. It's a gimbal table, but can you tell me a little bit about just the table we're sitting at here, for instance?
When Des first took the job on as project manager for this boat 17 years ago, word got out around the world that Carriad was being restored again, and she's a much loved vessel. So the stories started pouring in. One of the stories that we got was that this was the original table in Cariad when she was built in 1896 and launched. The King of England at the time sat at this table.
They're incredible. What remains of Cariad on board from her original build?
Those kind of questions I can answer very accurately for you because I know every part of this vessel.
Right.
Originally, when we restored her, brought her up, put her in a makeshift shed in Satun, southern Thailand, and started meticulously and very carefully pulling her apart. All of the planking was in very bad condition, and the frames, which originally when she was built, riveted iron frames. Section by section, we would deplank the boat and then pull the ribs out and copy each individual rib shape, and in order to maintain and keep her original shape had to be a very careful process. She was originally planked in 2.5 inch thick teak.
She was built of Burmese teak. We're very close to where the actual timber came from to where she was built.
Obviously back in those days, sailors were well enough travelled to know what timber had the best integrity from what part of the world. In this particular case, because it was being built for Lord Dunraven,
yes,
he wanted teak. Having said that, when we deplanked the boat down to the garbet and the first 3 planks off the garbet, they were American elm.
Right.
They were still in really good condition. So going back to your original question, how much of the original Carriad is still there, we ended up replacing all of the frames.
Yep.
And then keeping the garbet plank, which is the first plank off the keel, the whole of the keelson, 3 planks off of the garbet, as much else as we could retain when we completely rebuilt the rudder, which is huge.
Yeah.
We retained the original old rudder post, the original old steering gear. There's still bits and pieces of her left.
Yeah.
Enough for, in my opinion, she still retains her soul.
What's one of the most interesting parts of the sourcing of the timber that you could tell us about?
I made a lot of inquiries from local traditional boat builders, did a lot of research on the timber that we could source locally. We came up with a local Asian timber called Tekian Tong.
Yep.
I went up into Laos and we started trying to source because the Tekian Tong that comes from Laos is the best. There is always specific countries where the timber has more integrity.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about wooden boats, and especially this one. It's a bit like a love affair. You meet someone or a boat, you fall in love and your passion doesn't waver. Even though it's a timber boat, the lines all come from the frames. Traditional carvel plank follow the lines of the frames. Having said that, to bend the planks around into that shape is the art.
Right.
And that all comes down to old school accurate carpentry and measurements and bevels, fairing battens and measuring off, and it's been done the same for thousands of years.
So a lot of that's done by eye rather than using laser levels or anything particular technology.
Well, that's the whole thing about a boat. You can't use you chuck your square and your spirit level away. You only have a certain number of planks which make up the sides of the boat. Mm-hmm. Obviously they have to be thinner at the bow and then flare out to wider in the middle to give you the shape and the beaminess. The stern of this vessel is absolutely gorgeous. And when we went to rebuild, because it's termed a counter stern boat.
Right.
Right. So which basically means that you've got the rudder post there, and then the actual hull protrudes and cantilevers,
yep,
counters back way over far beyond the stern post.
Yeah.
She was the forerunner of the J class because that's when the English yacht designers really got into the idea of a big counter stern, so that when the boat lays over, you increase your waterline length.
Yep.
But it makes for a very beautiful line on the boat, the counter stern, which means that the whole stern is overhanging the water. but very hard to recreate. When we restored Cariad 17 years ago, this was all rotten out, and so we meticulously pulled it all apart. And then, because she's a composite boat, basically means steel framed, iron framed everywhere, we had to relace iron framing right the way back. But because she is essentially a timber boat, the timber had to be married very carefully onto the steel, extended beyond. So this whole section that we're sitting on here is basically solid timber.
Wow.
And then carved out into this gorgeous shape. Probably one of the most special places on the whole boat.
Well, and it's certainly gorgeous, and seeing her under sail, it's just truly breathtaking. You know, we even talk about the blocks. We have hand-stitched leather sheaths over the blocks. You did all that by hand?
Yeah, it's all in-house. We didn't build the blocks. The blocks all were made in Holland. There are certain blocks like this one here which bang against the deck. They all need leathering up, and so yeah, we did all that in-house.
How did it feel to be out there sailing and watching your vision and everything come together?
Pretty happy actually with how it all went. New crew, learning a new boat. We've had good light breezes, ease ourselves into it.
And so you're the sailing master on board Cariad, and you're also a rigger by trade. How different is Cariad compared to normally used to doing?
I've done a few boats similar to this before, but most of my work has been replica ships like Captain Cook's Endeavour,
yes,
and the Dyfkin, so much older period and square rigged. You know, this is a nice contrast in a way.
You mentioned Cariad's a very powerful yacht when she winds up. How many people would it take to sail her when she's, you know, in 15 to 20 knots of breeze and powered up?
Well, I wanted 15, which is what we've had on board, but I think if you were racing with topsails and spinnakers and things, you'd probably want 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a very sleek hull. They realised that they did a stability test in Saturn, and then Paul went and crunched his numbers and realised that the rig was too tall for the boat. When they did the homework, they actually realised that there were two Cariads built,
right,
and the rig on this one was modelled on the second Cariad, which was 10 feet longer.
Wow.
So having done the stability data, then you can work out, yeah, okay, we're going to lie the sticks in the drink.
You've got a beautiful rig, beautiful new suit of sails, and she's sailing along, but it's the proportions of hull and cabin and rig that makes her stand out. So yeah, there's some beautiful fittings. I know the steering gear when they've been working on it, it's just spectacular engineering from a bygone era, but it's pretty nice.
And having seen her out sailing today, I can tell you she's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
It really, really is. And you talk about the cabin layout down below. Really, a lot of thought has gone into that, and those proportions that you do talk about really are there. It's a livable yacht. You could get on here and you could comfortably live.
Depends on who you are. Because, I mean, it is still a racing yacht. She's fine, and like we were out yesterday, we had got up to about fine on the bow. We'd had about 8 or 9 knots of breeze, but we were getting along at sort of 5.5 to 6 knots, so she's just a racehorse from a bygone era.
That's
beautiful
amazing.
thing. Yeah, beautiful. See, what's one of the greatest things about sailing? Empowerment. You get a sail up by hand, even though we've got some electric winches to help us with some of that, but you get that sail up, you cross that ocean. At the end of it, you are brothers, sisters and family, but you've empowered yourself because it's absolutely the most empowering thing you can ever do in your life. It's come to me how lucky I've been to have so many opportunities to have that.
Well, sitting on board Carriad like this in the beautiful crabby Thailand, I think we're lucky guys.
We are lucky.
Just to be here.
Just being here, I know.
Captain T, you're a legend, but you're also the captain of a very beautiful and very old classic sailing yacht. You're famous for bringing unseaworthy boats a very long way from A to B and getting the job done. Can you tell me what happened when you towed Carriad to Thailand from Singapore?
First night after we left Singapore into Malaysia water, the mast is broken down on the port side. My crew, 2 crew, east side. So lucky
you didn't hurt someone very badly. So the mast was totally soft?
Yes.
And at the same time, you mentioned before you were pumping water.
A lot
of water from the deck hatch out over the side while being towed. all day and all night.
All day, all night.
And then you eventually got
Yeah.
Cariad to
Yeah.
Satun,
To Satun.
where
And safe to Satun.
safe to
Yeah.
Satun. Congratulations, that's a job in itself.
Yes.
So what does the future hold for Cariad? As a nominee at the World Super Yachts Award for the Best Classic Rebuild or Refit, she won. It was stated at the gala event, which was held in Venice. This year, the standard of classic yacht rebuilds was so high that the judges deemed these should be considered separately in a classic rebuild category. 2 beauties were the finalists. While the judges noted that the quality of work on the famous racing boat Moonbeam was superb, it was Cariad, a yacht that had been brought back to life twice, that had won the overall race. The judges were blown away by the amazing story behind the classic sailing yacht. This in fact marks the second complete rebuild of the boat. What remains from the original boat is a small percentage, yet the judges commented that the refit project has been tremendously faithful to her original design. Then in 2025, leading a celebratory flotilla up the Thames for a 250-year anniversary of the Royal Thames Yacht Club, one of the oldest yacht clubs in the world. It seems that Cariad is a draw card for historical events and places. We certainly hope that she will continue to create her archives for many more years to come and become a part of inspiring maritime history.
We're preserving a piece of British maritime history. It's all disappearing from the world. All of this stuff's disappearing. And if we can preserve it and have it sailing, a worthwhile project, preserving British maritime history.